Pauline is her first opera. An extraordinary story. And then we took those words and we gave them to 3 composers. And we are so pleased to have chosen Tobin. And he's doing, if I may say, a wonderful job with it. He has the gift of glossolalia. He is a kind of musical ventriloquist. He can write in many voices. And Margaret has conceived a story with 8 voices in a total of 14 roles. And what Tobin has given us, we can hear already, although it's by no means yet orchestrated. That won't happen for another 6 months. What he's given us already are those colors and those timbres and those chromatic intuitions that tell us, I can hear the clarinet here. I can hear the cello in that voice. I can hear the French horn warming through in the morning. Lost Lagoon, you will know, was actually named by Pauline Johnson. It used to be part of Cole Harbour before the expressway went in, before the causeway was built in Stanley Park. It was a tidal flat, and it rose with the tides and disappeared. It was lost. And she gave it the charming name Lost Lagoon, and it stuck. Thank you again, Pauline. So as we put together the people, we begin with the story. We find a wonderful story and a great librettist. Then we find the composer. And now we need to begin to put together the people who will actually create the piece on stage. Opera is theater. It is not a solemn procession with monks and hooded heads. It is theater. And we wanted to direct the show someone with a great gift and great imagination and a strong reputation for creative and disciplined and viable and audience-friendly theater. Ladies and gentlemen, our stage director, Norman Harmer.
The joke was going to be, so why did you hire me? But since we're actually on the theme of how one gets hired, why not actually? I got a call one day from Charles, who we knew each other out and about in the city. I certainly know Charles and Tom Murray's work with the Pantages. Was part of one of the tours actually with Pantages. And I heard his kind of a horrendous loss actually in the city for many reasons, not just because for myself, because it was a place of theater and opera and other things. But Charles had called me and said, we're doing this opera. You may or may not know about it. I've got a list of directors. Theater directors, it's not my specialty. I just wanted to run you through a list of them, so and get your feedback. And I was flattered. So I knew some of them, probably half of them, maybe a bit more. I gave my honest opinions off the record, so to speak. And then at the end, he said, we talked for about 10 minutes or something. And at the end, he said, so is there anybody who's not on this list that should be? And I've never done this. Truly, I've never done this. I said, me. And then I listened to my mother, which is basically, you say something like that, and then you shut up. Like, you've done your pitch, shut up. Don't try and push it any further. And I just said, ask around. And then a couple days, I got a call from Charles saying that he and one of his co-producers, Nora, wanted to sit down and talk. And over the course of lunch, I think there was sort of a sense that I think that they wanted me, although I was a bit scared to kind of assume that. And then it became the process of becoming really scared, like really scared, because while I've done a certain amount of directing, and in many ways I'm originally an actor and became a director, producer. Now I'm a presenter with the Push Festival. I have been for the last 7 years. The last time I directed was 5 years ago. It's called Blackbird, which did very well and won a bunch of Jessies and things like that. But pretty straight-ahead theater piece. I've never directed opera. I'm not a musician. I'm not a singer. I can't read music. So you can kind of gather that I might be a little scared. That other word that starts with an S. But at the same time, I thought to myself, well, why should I even get this job? What should I bring to this endeavor? I run a fairly large organization, somewhat larger than Charles's organization. But it's an international festival, but I think at the core of the festival is about risk. It's about innovation of some sort. I think, although I think that word's a little overstated. More importantly, it's about relevance. It's about contemporary art and how it can be relevant, not only on a world stage, but the stage that it's on, and in this case, Vancouver. So I thought, well, maybe I can bring that perspective to an opera that's written by, libretto is written by a very famous woman back east, a novelist and such, poet. But maybe I could bring a perspective of a kind of internationalism that the story deserved, but very much grounded here in Vancouver. Maybe I could bring together a group of designers that would only come together because, not because I had a telephone book that I could call, but that I would actually think about bringing together a First Nations visual artist to work on the set and projections. And when she asked, could she have somebody of Mohawk background to assist her in some of the protocols and a kind of deeper appreciation, even though she herself is First Nations. I'm not going to pronounce it properly, Kwak. But that also that I would insist that we have somebody doing research and providing to everybody involved, the performers, the designers, Tobin, others, a kind of resource center, a website that would give kind of context to who Pauline Johnson was as an artist, as a figure in history, as a person who lived at a certain time and was surrounded. As remarkable as she was out of the time. And any of us here are remarkable in our own ways, and we come out of this time right now, and we can trace ourselves, certainly through our ancestry, but we can also trace ourselves of who we are to the events right now that are happening, and what we think and what we strive for, and what perhaps our aspirations are, and what our struggles are, and such. So I insisted upon that idea, and I think it was a bit shocking to Charles and others at first. Worried that we might then be buried under the weight of kind of the sense of responsibility to who this person was, and were we going to be buried under some notion around documentary, which I had no interest in doing. And then I also thought that perhaps I would bring not necessarily the wild side of my work at the Push Festival, but my work as a theater artist in terms of an integrated sense of stage. I've always believed as an artist, as a director, that performers, no matter how much you do design-wise and how much you do in other terms, in terms of music or such, or even the words, that at the center of any theater experience is the human being. And we'll present stuff at the Push Festival that refutes that fact this year. But for me personally, human beings are the turning point. They are the thing. And I thought that perhaps would be a good value to bring to the whole extravaganza of what opera sometimes can be. And this is, I guess, what's called the chamber opera. So there's 8 singers, there's 8 to 10 musicians, it's of a certain scale. Also, too, I think I gained very quickly an appreciation for some of the challenges, not only with the case of how short the rehearsal process is for opera, and we can talk a little bit more about that later. It's incredibly short, like really short. But also, what's amazing about the production is that it's going to premiere in the newly renovated York Theatre on Commercial Drive, which I love to say has this wonderful, big, tall proscenium. It's the sort of the archway of a theatre that's about 30 feet wide and about 30 feet tall. And the stage, however, is only 18 feet deep. So basically, it's less than where I'm standing to the end of that wall. So how do you deal with 8 performers? How do you deal with an hour-and-a-half opera? And a story of this scale and this kind of complexity in a stage that really is not much deeper than a nice-sized living room and such. I thought that I would be more than up for the challenge to work with constraints, because I think ultimately theater is a bunch of constraints, and real art does come out of a sense of constraint, whether it's financial, time-wise, human resources, physical resources, and such. And a challenge and a set of restraints that have beyond itself some larger goal or aspiration. And in this case, certainly, it's Pauline Johnson and who she was, and certainly in very specifically the work that's been envisioned and created by both Tobin and Margaret Atwood. So we've just come out of 2 days of workshops. I have to say I'm a lot less scared than I was before, feeling the territory, an extraordinary group of collaborators, singers, designers, production people, an incredible amount of work. Tobin over dinner was joking that he thought yesterday, at the end of yesterday, was the end of the workshop, that so much was getting done, and he was worried. He was like, let's hurry up here, come on, we don't have any time. And then he kind of realized, wait a second, we got another day. So it's been extraordinarily rewarding to do it this far out in advance and to get this much kind of ground under us. Well, at the same time, I think probably most in the room would agree with me is that we're only beginning to scratch the surface of what this is and what the enormity of what this means. Ultimately, in the end, I think most art is fairly simple. Getting to that place of those kind of simple answers to huge questions that then once again, once you sit in those answers, actually kaleidoscope open again to a whole host of meanings and interpretations and depth of understanding and appreciation. That, I think, is a much longer journey, and it's the one that we've only just, I think, begun.
Norman Armour.